Welcome and good evening to the 34th free online session of ICC Crack the Wellness Code. We had a very engaging session last time, and we have a similar topic today, but with more action. And as you can see the agenda right in front of you on the screen. So we'll have a very action-oriented, cooking demo by Timmery Hegenberger, who has been uh, in this profession and doing this for several decades. She's a culinary professor. She is uh, a master dietitian, nutritionist, a TV personality, and also a very, regular blogger. And some of you may have also, seen her blogs. So, and of course, we are so glad to have Dr. Sanjeev Jain back with us. We had a barrage of questions last time, and and people were wanting for more. And today he has some new interesting dimension to offer on food allergy, immunity, and so on. So keep putting your questions in the chat box, okay? Because you already know him, so you can start putting the questions, and so that he can have adequate time to answer your questions. And of course, we have Derika Deshmukh with us. She's a nutritionist and dietitian in her own right. She's associated with the El Camino Hospital, South Asia Heart Center. And of course, she has been advising and lecturing and, practicing conscious eating, among others, in a variety of organizations in Bay Area. And recently, Erika also had been invited by the governor's office to, share her insights on conscious eating. So that's very interesting. And so all the panelists are there with you. We are once again looking for a very interactive session today, and just going through the slides here. So this is our star speakers for today. One mantra of Timmery has always been, love the food that loves you back, okay? And it means a lot. And she'll tell you today what that exactly means, okay? The objectives today, of course, is managing food allergies and immune system. And of course, lots of tips on healthy eating and eating habits. This is quickly the mission of ICC Crack the Wellness Code, educate, inspire, and you see what we do to accomplish this task and what's our mission. This is our journey very quickly. We started July 2018. We are going to have 50 plus online sessions by July 2020. And it has been a very exciting journey so far. And right on the front page, I'll show you a link that is there for contributing to CWC, both as a volunteer or any other project that you want to lead or advise us. This is how we do all these programs. So we have a huge wellness ecosystem with 30 plus doctors, 22 plus nutritionists, wellness partners, some of them very, very reputed ones, Stanford, UC Irvine, Hume Center, and they bring a lot of insights, perspective to our wellness movement. Then, of course, a variety of diverse practitioners, and we are fortunate to have practitioners like Timmery and Erika, Sachin Deshmukh, as part of this ecosystem, and they have been regularly coming, contributing and impacting the community. And of course, there are lots of health tech companies, there are a lot of emerging companies that we also associated with. And below, you can see all the categories of programs we have. In fact, tomorrow we have the program for the seniors. So just reminding you that 6:30 tomorrow we have this program for seniors. This is a note about disclaimer and liability, just to make it very evident and clear that this is just a platform for providing you, information and certain types of resources. You are expected to directly, see your practitioner, or we can help you connect online, but this is not a forum for providing direct healthcare. So having said all that, we are about to start this, session with Timmery coming in. And I just want to tell you that, as you can see, it's a 34th free online session, and we are building an app. We are in midst of a massive technology project, And you can see the link. It's very simple. Our website is Crack the Wellness Code, and there's a /donate. So that's where you can go and contribute whatever you feel as you keep, engaging with us. And we have 25 more events coming in June and July. We are going to share that with you very shortly. All of you will receive mailers from us on those programs. So do be with us. This is the email address is right on top, CWC event ICC. .icc@gmail.com. So send us your suggestions, and if you want to associate in any way, let us know. So having said that, I would invite Timmerie to, connect with the audience, tell them a little bit about, what she has been doing during this lockdown period. I'm sure she must have had wonderful opportunity to explore a variety of food. So before she gets into action, Timmerie, it would be wonderful to hear from you. What have you been doing in the lockdown period? What kept you busy, and what new recipes or what new thoughts you have on the immunity boosting, capability of our community? Yeah, over to you.
Thank you. Welcome tonight. I'm so happy to have everybody joining us. My name is Timmerie Hagenberger, and I have been a dietitian for 21 years now. And I teach full-time as a nutrition professor, as well as do TV work and other things, especially my work that I do with ICC. And during this lockdown time was mid-semester for me, so we had to go into remote instruction, but I just took my classes on live Zoom because I have very strong connections with my students, and I wanted to still be with them, even if it was, through technology. So it actually got busier for me. Instead of, a lot of people got a little quieter with their work, but mine actually increased. But I was able to finish everybody out through the semester and had a little bit more time to do some cooking. I do love cooking, and one of my favorite times of year now is this spring and summer because of all the fruit. So that fresh fruit, all of a sudden it starts coming into the supermarket, and my kids especially are fruit lovers. So that's been a wonderful time. This was some time that our family was able to take our front yard project to the next level. So our front yard is now 100% edible. So we have planted only edible crops in the front yard. So we have everything from ancho peppers to cucumbers of all different types, strawberries. I have purple collard trees that are growing, parsley, oregano. I have cilantro. Let's see, what else do I have? Banana peppers. And I just go out there every morning and harvest and then come in, or just now I grabbed some pineapple mint. So we're gonna talk about that during the cooking demo. But that has been a huge gift. And it's amazing how many people walk by or bicycle by and stop and say, wow, your yard is gorgeous. And it really warms our heart because it's bringing joy to the community, but also with us being plant-based eaters, it only makes financial sense to grow. Instead of watering a yard or a lawn, we're growing food. So that was what my husband and I decided. Nothing that was going to be planted that wasn't edible.
So that's a wonderful exposition, Timmerie, and it's a very integrated supply chain that you have. And I imagine that you are one of those persons who will be frequenting the grocery much less than many of us, which you do, and you get almost everything in your backyard. Wonderful. So we know that you write a lot of blogs. In fact, our Crack the Wellness Code website has integrated with your website, which is a wonderful website, and we pull in a lot of blogs from there. So what is some of the blogs that you've been writing recently, which is of interest to our participants here?
I have done one with my daughter about meal planning and meal prepping, which is very important. A lot of people worry about how much money they spend. And up until now you're starting to see some of the restaurants do a little bit more opening. But typically for people when they go out, they don't eat as well as if they were home. So I would much rather have people eating at home, not only with sodium, but just ingredients in general. So but sometimes people don't know where to start. So we did a very extensive article about how to plan with your whole family. So that's a great one to
I think you
plan.
said something which will, encourage our participants to shoot a lot of questions. So start putting all the questions in the chat box, because Timothy is not going to be here for the entire time. I would suggest that as she gets into action, start putting out questions so that she'll do her best to answer the questions. I think there are lots of ground that she has covered already, and now we're ready to see her in action. Over to you.
All right, so I am going to, today is, a recipe is very simple, but it's something to bring us back to for immune strength and immune support. So, and just life support, really. And that is fruit. So it's interesting, but research shows that fruit eaters have actually 50% less DNA damage at any given time. So our bodies, we know, we're insulted thousands of times a day. The estimate I've seen is about 800 to 900 times an hour. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of times a day. And our body is set up in order to fix that damage. Normally we have these antioxidants that will help, but the support that fruit and the phytonutrients that the fruit provides just help our bodies more than you could ever imagine. So again, think about not only for cancer, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but just in general, we've even seen studies for some of these fruits reducing how long a cold lasts and how severe it is. So people underestimate the value of fruit. And so we're not going to do that today. We're going to value it. I have chosen very specific items, as I always do with our cooking demos, because each one has extremely beneficial phytonutrients. So you're going to hear that word a lot. Phyto, P-H-Y-T-O, that's for plant. But when I teach my students, I also remind them phyto means fight, and that's fight for your health. And that's what these nutrients do for our cells. So I'm starting with an apple. And again, the lowly apple, one of my first classes in my nutrition course, that I show a video about how powerful the phytonutrients are in the skin of the apple, to the point where they have tumor suppressor gene, that they will turn on a tumor suppressor gene that normally gets turned off by cancer. So not only does it help reduce growth, but it also reduces metastasis or spreading of cancer. So many people peel their apples, and that is the worst thing you can do. You want to make sure you clean it, and then you want to just take out the core. And for me, I'm always wanting to make sure I get value for my money. And I see people cutting apples and they just slice down each side and leave a big amount that they throw away. Oh, it drives me crazy because there's so much goodness in apples. Now apples, so this is how much at max you want to throw away. I mean, just a small amount. But apples also are pretty heavily sprayed. So I always make sure that I buy organic. So it's something for you to note that the EWG.org, Environmental Working Group, that website will tell you what are the 15 most pesticide-laden fruits and vegetables and what are the clean, the 15 cleanest. So it's nice. They actually do a huge list, but you can get the top, they call it the dirty dozen, and the clean 15. And apples are always ranking high. Same thing with strawberries, okay? So it's just important to make sure you're buying organic for those, or at least if you're going to a farmer's market, you're asking if the farmer sprays, because sometimes they don't spray, but they haven't qualified or they can't afford the USDA organic certification, but they also live in the property where they farm and they don't spray. So it's something to ask. So apples, make sure you don't peel them. The other piece about apples is the more color, and this is a secret for all fruit, the more color, the more phytonutrients. It's actually the pigments in the fruits and vegetables that provide this protection. So we want nice red or brightly colored fruit. So these apples are, you can see, they're nice red. So that's fantastic. So I love the crunch of apples. Pears are also excellent and they have their own benefits. Apples also provide a lot of fiber, and something that's important for all of these fruits is that they help us hydrate. So in the summer, and especially if you're inside with a lot of air conditioning, when it gets hot, you're going to get dehydrated easily. So you want to make sure you're getting enough fluid, but you can also get that fluid through food, and especially ripe fruits and vegetables. Okay, so there's apple. Next is kiwi. Now, kiwi is like a stealth warrior when it comes to our immune system. Now, there are people who are allergic to kiwi, and obviously it's not for them. But if you're not allergic, we have both the green kiwi, okay, which you've seen, and then we have the gold kiwi. And the gold actually in some studies imparted even more antioxidant, and it was actually an respiratory. They were looking at respiratory illness, and they saw with people who consume kiwi, it was much less, and gold was more protective. Now, some of you may have just looked at what I was doing and saying, I think you skipped a step. What do most people do with kiwi? They peel it, right? Do I peel it? No. Why? Even more fiber and nutrients. So as long as you're cleaning them well, there's no need to peel. What I found is that the gold kiwi have an even thinner skin, and they're not very furry. But my students usually look at me and say, oh my gosh, how do you eat that? I just get used to it. It doesn't bother me at all. So the only thing you want to make sure you take out is that little bottom. I call it like a little thumbtack, right? At the very bottom. So we don't want that. So we're going to cut some kiwi. Kiwi is technically in the berry family. So think of how beneficial berries are, and we're going to add some. But with kiwi also, not only has it been shown to help reduce DNA damage and help your cells recover from DNA damage, but it's also been shown to be helpful for people with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So again, unless you are allergic, kiwi should be something that you include on the regular. And if you end up with a nice bumper crop of kiwi, you can freeze it. So I would just rinse it, slice it, and freeze it. I use my freezer a lot. I'm actually going to explain something else I use it for. Now, citrus. Again, there are some people that have allergies to citrus, but in general, we see citrus eaters can drop cancer rates by as much as 10%. So citrus is critical. And if you've seen me before working with citrus, you know I use this microplane. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the zest, just the very top. Okay, so you can see just the top layer. I did not get into the pith. I just want the very top because this is so bioactive. So not only does it give us some flavor, but it also gives us protection. And they have done studies where they've compared orange juice, and it doesn't give us the protection that eating the entire fruit does. Now, I don't know how common, in my family, I just love it, the kumquats, the little tiny citrus, where you roll them and then you eat the whole thing with the peel and the inside. Oh, those are excellent, obviously, because you get all of that goodness. So this is just little cuties, but any of the citrus is excellent. We're going to add some lime as well, and lime zest. And I want to add some more berries. So again, I told you kiwi was one of the fruits that are in the berry family that people typically don't think about as berries. But I'm also putting in blueberries. So with this fruit, all of this fruit can be found in my refrigerator, obviously, or on the counter. But there's something magical about cutting it up. My family will walk by it, but if it's all cut up, it's so easy, and then it becomes a go-to snack. So don't underestimate the importance of just taking a little bit of time to put together a special fruit salad instead of leaving apples in the bottom drawer of the refrigerator to just go bad. That's one of the situations that I hear my students and community members say is that they buy food and it goes bad. So as I had mentioned when Sam asked me what I've been doing, I had mentioned that there's a meal planning blog that I wrote, or article that I wrote. And that idea of having a plan, not just going to the grocery store and buying whatever looks good, and then you get home with these random things, half of it goes bad in your refrigerator, that's not gonna go well for your budget or your body. So I have some fresh blueberries. This doesn't typically happen in my house. I normally use frozen, but for today I was doing something else earlier today that I needed fresh blueberries. So that's why I have them. I always choose frozen because they don't mold. So when I normally look for berries, I'm very careful because they're expensive in the supermarket. So I'm looking for the best little container of organic blueberries or raspberries, and I find one that I think has no mold. And then by the time I get home from the grocery store, somehow I pop it open and there's mold. It drives me crazy. So I like to get frozen, and you can find organic frozen berries of all types very easily. But we'll put in some of these fresh blueberries. So far you can see we're looking good on color. And then what I want to do before I add some spices that I'm going to talk about is add some lime. So whenever you use citrus for the juice, so limes or lemons, it's important to roll them because you're breaking up some of the little cells in there and you're going to get more juice out. Now, always zest before you squeeze. Otherwise, you're going to have little pieces that are going to be hard and you may end up zesting your finger instead of the citrus. So we're going to do a little bit of lime on top. Now, I had mentioned that I use my freezer a lot. And my students know I am always putting things in the freezer. Now, this is interesting. This is little packets that I did of zest. So our neighbors had they have a gigantic lemon tree with lemons that are literally like bigger than a softball. So they're all ready at the same time. I can't use them all. So I zest and then I make ice cubes from the juice. And then I have those in a bag in the freezer. And then when I need lemon juice and lemon zest, I just pull it out. All right? So that makes it very, very easy. So we did some lime. Now I'm going to squeeze some lime juice. This will help also with keeping the apple not to change the oxidized, right? The Maillard reaction. So I'm going to do some fresh lime. And if you ever have a watermelon that just doesn't taste that great, put lime on top and it will taste fantastic. I also love lime on papaya. Very special flavor. So very tropical. We've got lime juice. Now, all that I have left to add is some greens. So again, as a dietitian, I'm a crazy girl about greens. This is pineapple mint from my yard, and it is just thriving. Now, a little tip for your gardeners, or if you want to do this in even in your windowsill, When you're doing mint, do not put it in the ground. It will take over. So you want to do mint in a pot. So we have the grow bags, which if you haven't ever seen those, they're felt grow bags. You can find them online and they're like $1 each. And then you can move them around and figure out where your plants are happiest. Because sometimes pots can be expensive. So those grow bags are a treat. So pineapple mint. Now, you may think, oh, this is just a little bit of greens. Will this actually make a difference in your health? Yes. Short answer, yes. Greens are phenomenal. We are built to run on greens. So even in my fruit salad, I figured out a way to get some greens. All right, so I've got that mint in there. Now, I had spoken in the past about the importance of spices, because spices are going to be very critical for immune system as well. So I have a mixture of different things that I wanted to just mention. In the past, I've talked about my chai spice blend, and we at the June event last year, we featured some special chai tea that we made with almond milk and my chai spice blend. This is on my website and in my cookbook, The Foodie Bar Way. I also have, and that chai spice blend includes turmeric, which is basically the most potent, which you know very well, the most potent of the antioxidant spices. It also has black pepper, which that combination is fantastic. I also have a pumpkin pie spice, and this, along with a lot of other very important spices like ginger, which we're going to talk about in a second. It also has cloves. Now, cloves are strong, and that is something that most people would associate with pumpkin pies, that little bit of cloves. They're very strong, but they're very potent. Just a pinch will make a difference in your cells. And then I have rosemary, which is not going to go here, but I wanted to include this because it's been recognized as potent for antioxidant. And gooseberries. So amla powder. I use amla every single day. I incorporate it into my fruit salads, in my oatmeal. Amla, this gooseberry that you're, I'm sure, familiar with because I get it at the Indian spice store, is one of the most potent, if not the most potent berries on the planet. So it has kind of a bitter taste, but over this, it tastes amazing. And the other two are flax and chia seeds. So ideally, you're going to get fiber, protein, omega-3s, lignans, all kinds of fantastic cancer-fighting nutrients from these. But you want to crush them. So I have a little coffee grinder that I have just relegated just to that job of grinding chia and flax. So those go in there and I do a little zoom and then I can put some on top. So we can do that right now. And then I think we can take questions once I get this done, because I saw I couldn't read the questions, but I saw questions were going across the screen in the chat. So
yeah, so start putting more questions. Yeah, I think you've seen quite a lot. So
Sam, if you could let me.
Yeah, I'll read out some of the questions once you're ready. I just want to make sure that your efforts are not disrupted.
Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to mention before you ask me questions is the other thing I keep in the freezer, or lots of things in the freezer, but one of the other things pertaining to this is ginger. So if you keep ginger in the refrigerator, it goes bad. It will dry out or it will mold. However, when you put it in the freezer, it stays great. And what I have found, again, with this zester, is when you chop up ginger, it gets stringy sometimes. However, when you use the microplane, especially if it's frozen, it does a fantastic job. And again, we'll put that right on top because ginger is another one of those antioxidant rich herbs, roots, right? So this is now complete once we get the seeds on top. And I'm gonna put a little bit of the chai spice. I can never get enough of that. I love it. So there's our, I want chai spice. There's our flaxseed and chia, chai spice. Now it's not gonna look as beautiful, but it is tasty and nutritious and health promoting in every way. So we can see. All right, Sam, I'm ready.
Yeah. So the first question is, how about looking at the sugar content of many fruits for diabetic people?
Yes, that is a question that a lot of people struggle with because they've been told that all carbohydrates are turn into sugar and that all carbohydrates are bad. Actually, especially with the keto, paleo, all these movements. However, what the research shows is that sugar from whole fruit, not juice, you cannot count juice in this, but sugar from whole fruit is actually helpful for diabetics, not harmful. So, and for everybody across the board. And that we are actually, as a nation, low in our fruit intake. And most people, the fruit they eat, bananas, which is fine, but those are not the most antioxidant rich. So we want, like what we're having here, this mixture of citrus and berries and kiwis and apples. These are really cancer fighting. So we don't see the issue. They've done studies where they've given diabetics as many as 20 servings of fruit a day, and they did not see any deleterious issues with their blood sugars.
So
but again, juice. Go ahead.
Any comment on dates? I know you prepare a lot of desserts with dates. So what is your take on that?
So dates are by far the healthiest sweetener, no question, on the planet. So, and date sugar, which is made from just dates that are powdered, is the wonderful choice if you're gonna look for a sweetener. However, just dates doesn't make sense for a meal, right? Or for a snack, because they're just one type of fruit and they're very concentrated in calories. So using a few dates in a dessert, but using a cup or 2 cups or 3 cups, I've seen recipes that are just all like several cups of nuts and several cups of dates. I think that's a little overboard. Again, they're a great addition. You can put 2 dates into a recipe, but using that as the core of a dessert, I think is a little bit overwhelming. And the other thing that I think we also need to be aware of is that we are now in a situation where everybody's tongue or palate is overstimulated by sweetness. So it seems like there's never a situation where people don't put sugar into things. Even, you know, the vitamin water people are drinking and it's sweetened. Everything is sweetened. So if dates have a very high sweetness level, and if you get used to eating fruit salads like this, and then you eat a date, 1 is enough because it is so sweet. But if you're normally going from candy, and then you do sweetened tea and sweetened coffee, and everything is sweet, then you eat a few dates and you're still not satisfied. You're eating more and more and more.
So, you know, I would like to get a perspective in turns. First, Dr. Sanjeev and then Erika on their take about, you know, fruits and what they have to say on fruits, for instance, yeah, for health and diabetic patient, yeah.
Yeah, yes. So my take on this is that this was a very excellent presentation, and her point is very well taken. So these fruits, you know, fresh fruits and leafy vegetables, they're very high in nutrients, which are critical for immune health. And she mentioned a lot of those nutrients, such as phytochemicals, flavonoids, vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E. Those are all very critical nutrients for immune health. In addition, the other important thing that we need to bring up is the role of fiber. And so that has been studied quite extensively. And what we find is, especially for the gut, the most important prebiotic is actually fiber. And so if you have high fiber in your diet, that promotes the growth of healthy bacteria and healthy microbiome in your gut, which then also leads to good immune health. And so that's another one of the differences between eating real fruit and drinking fruit juice. And so when you're drinking fruit juice, you're losing a lot of the health benefits of fruits. So I completely agree with that.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev. Erica, you want to add something to that?
I wish that Tamari could hand some of that fruit through the Zoom screen. It looks delicious. I agree. I think this is a really common question. So I work as a certified diabetes educator, and now we're called Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialists. They just changed the title. And this is also just really common, but I agree that fruit, you know, it has insoluble fiber that would be like on the skin, and the soluble fiber is inside, like the pectin, let's say, of the apple. And that actually can lower cholesterol and it can lower blood sugar. So I completely agree. When I'm working with people with diabetes, though, because many people on this call may have diabetes and say, wait a second, that doesn't apply to me. It can be very individual, and I often say it's the amount. So we do teach, you know, a kind of classic carbohydrate counting to understand, like, you know, what a good serving for you would be. And it's pretty individual, but you wouldn't, maybe you would eat a cup of that at a time, or you could eat, you know, 3/4 of a cup of a berry and half of an apple, but you wouldn't eat maybe four whole apples or 3, you know, there's, so typically, I won't get into the details, but I would say about, you know, 30 grams or 45 grams of carbohydrate per meal, if that's helpful. And it's very individual. So that's typically how I work with people.
And we'll have to do another session focus more on the diabetes piece, because that idea that people are worried about the sugar, but they don't realize that what's clogging up their cells is the saturated fat, the intramyocellular fat. And so sometimes people just kind of misunderstand that whole process. But absolutely, the individualized piece and the fiber and feeding the gut microbiome, and the fact that the gut microbiome plays such a huge role in our immune system is critical. Sam, I think you're muted.
I'm saying we should certainly be going for an elaborate program only on, you know, food for diabetics. So that would be interesting. Yeah, that's a huge topic to cover. So this is the next question. I think this is something which all 3 of you can answer. Can you elaborate on the importance of phytonutrients? Who would like to take it first? Dr. Sanjeev? Okay.
Yeah, so phytonutrients are a class of nutrients which are, as mentioned, are found mostly in the colored part of fruits and vegetables, and they have been found to have multiple health benefits, including improving immune health, possibly cancer fighting properties, and antioxidant properties. So all the things which are critical for immune health are all present in these phytochemicals. So they're very, very important. And some of the these colored ingredients also help to make vitamins. So for example, the carotenes are ultimately converted into vitamin A which has benefit in immune health, but also has a benefit in vision and other things. So they've been studied quite extensively, and there are literally thousands of publications on the benefits of these phytochemicals in our nutrition.
Oh, there's a very interesting question here. It says, if I put all that you have in that bowl in the blender to make a smoothie, is it good? What's your answer to that? That's a direct question.
So no, I would not. There are a couple issues. One is that you are going to be breaking some of the cell walls, which can, if it's vegetables, sometimes can make it easier for us to extract the phytonutrients. But something that you'll be missing is the chewing. And chewing is an important function in our gastrointestinal process, our GI tract. And when we chew, it gives our brain the message that we're eating. And so it's going to help with satiety. You can drink a smoothie, and people will know they can put a lot of food in a smoothie and drink that down without feeling it, but that also leads people then to snack and overeat later because they're not going through that normal process of chewing, that mastication, stimulating the brain, as well as the lower GI tract peristalsis. So I would not, there are certain circumstances where someone who has maybe issues with dentition that may need something in a different form. If they're dealing with dysphagia from a stroke or something like that, or a dental procedure. But on the regular, to say, oh, I'm just going to put all this in the blender, you're also going to see a higher response in blood sugar. Because again, right now, all of the carbohydrate and all the nutrients are inside the cell walls. And we can do a good job chewing, but we'll never do the same job that you would in a high-powered blender. So again, if my choice is to chew or to sip, my choice would be to chew. And I hope that that is what everybody else will do too. There was something that was mentioned, and I wanted to respond to it, and I can't remember what.
We'll go ahead. So what we'll do is we have lots of questions coming.
Okay.
So we'll be short in terms of the answer, of course, doing the best that we can do. So let me go for a question which has been coming a couple of times, and this combines two aspects. Do you freeze the fresh lemon juice? And any suggestions for good probiotics?
I'll answer the lemon juice question and then let someone else answer the probiotic just so we hear other voices. Yes. But yes, I freeze them in ice cube trays, and then I pop them out and put them in a zip top bag, like a freezer bag. And then I have those for myself in the freezer. So yes.
So
the antioxidants in the lemon was decreased when it was cooked in studies, but not kept in cold.
So Erika, you want to add something to that?
Do you want?
This is the question.
Do you want me to take the probiotics? Oh.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I typically look for probiotics in food and not in supplements, and that's as a general rule. Where it comes from in nature. And so typically, especially in the Indian diet, I mean, fermented foods like yogurt and dosa and idli, I mean, there's so many places, and maybe buttermilk, all of these fermented products have probiotics naturally, and perhaps Dr. Jain will talk about prebiotics.
I'm coming to him actually. Yeah, so yeah, would you start throwing some light on that? You've done a lot of research in this area, yeah.
Yes, so regarding probiotics, I sort of mentioned that previously, and I would repeat that statement that our gut is almost like a rainforest. It has thousands and thousands of different species of bacteria that live there. And so by getting a pill which has 1 or 2 or 5 different species of bacteria, how will that impact that very complex environment is very difficult to predict. And that's why it's people have tried very hard to come up with, one set of probiotics which will work for everybody, and that's extremely difficult. But the key is, as Erica mentioned, the key is to use naturally occurring probiotics in things like yogurt, which has been used for thousands of years with good health benefits. So that would be a very good place to start. And the other important thing that's been recognized for a long time, for more recently now, is that it's the anaerobic fermentation, which is also very beneficial. And so that's the process of pickling, where you actually prepare your food with low oxygen. And so you pickle or ferment food in a closed container where you don't have access to oxygen. And in that anaerobic environment, the bacteria that grow are different, and those bacteria are very important for the immune system and good digestion. And the reason for that is our small gut. That's where most of our absorption of nutrients happen, and that small gut has mostly anaerobic bacteria. And so getting the small bowel's health through anaerobic fermentation is very, very important.
So there's another question. You want to add something to that?
I wanted to just echo that importance, and that the Human Microbiome Project that they're doing throughout the United States, the results from that, from what I understand, is the #1 factor in the health of someone's gut is the variety of fruits and vegetables that they eat. So the more, the better. So that 40, 50 different varieties of fruits and vegetables over a week was more important than any specific diet that someone followed. So that's critical. And with the yogurts, now you can get almond-based yogurt, you can get soy-based yogurt, you can get all kinds of non-dairy yogurts that are excellent. And you can make them at home.
Yeah, so one very quick question related to probiotics. Probiotics before food or after food?
Before food. If one is going to take it in the form of a pill, it's best to take it right before food. That way it doesn't get destroyed by the stomach acid.
Okay, so the next one is pineapple mint different from regular mint? And the person is saying that I have lots of mint. What's the difference?
It's just a different variety. It has a little different flavor. No, all mint works. So there's lots of different varieties. So if you can find it at the nursery, then try it. Chocolate mint is fun too, if you haven't ever seen that. But no, they're all wonderful and they're all different. And so that's, again, the variety. That's the spice of life and the spice of our health.
Okay, so this is a short one. Can we freeze rosemary?
You can. Most definitely, you typically just see it dried. So, you know, some of these really woody herbs, they dry extremely well and they're very shelf stable.
Okay, great. So this is a question I think probably we have touched. I'm just repeating it. Is it okay to eat fruit at night?
Do you want to talk about that, Dr. Jain?
Yeah, I don't see any real harm in eating fruit at night. We did talk briefly about people with diabetes, whether you want to have a very high, sugar-rich or carbohydrate-rich diet in the evening. That's not a good idea. But again, fruits in their natural form are not very, calorie rich. And for that reason, they are perfectly fine in the evening as well.
And especially most people in the evening are eating food that they're not hungry for because they're snacking, and they may have gotten into a habit of sitting on the couch and having something sweet or having a dessert. So finishing your meal with a piece of fruit or half a piece of fruit just to give your brain the end is a great habit to get into. Something else too, and again, this could be on another segment that we talk about, but the research is very strong that eating after 7 p.m. is not beneficial. And so for your blood glucose control, your body will respond differently to the same meal if taken at 8 at night versus 8 in the morning. And that's independent of whether you've had sunlight exposure, it's our circadian rhythm. So that's, again, we don't have time to get into all of that, but it's a better idea to finish your last meal early and then walk instead of sit and have something for dessert. It would be better to treat yourself to a walk after eating. And I always recommend brushing your teeth before you go on the walk, because then when you come back, you're not going to eat anything because you have already signaled to your body that you're done eating.
Right. So we have still some questions pending. So I would, in the meantime, request Erica to tell us about conscious eating. Her thesis about eating your drink and chewing your drink and drinking your food is
not
a thesis.
My thesis. That's a Mahatma Gandhi quote, and many people have said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, but you are a strong proponent of the thesis, and you have a wonderful way of demonstrating that. So would like to spend a little time hearing that from you and how people should practice that. And particularly in the lockdown period, there's a lot of time to actually, think through the process of eating, which a lot of people don't do. And you have time often very well demonstrated that. So good to hear that from you, Erica.
It's very complementary to what we're talking about. I love the topic. I'm very passionate about it. So right now we're having a lot of questions about what we eat and when we eat, and this conscious eating, some people call it mindful eating, is more about how we eat and bringing complete presence to the process of eating. And eating is such a wonderful thing. Who here doesn't love to eat? I've rarely met somebody, though I have met a lot of people, and once or twice I've met somebody, maybe Timuri is saying yes, who says, I wish there was just like a pill I could take because it's a nuisance and I just want to get on with my busy work. But most of us, I think 99% of us will say we love to eat, and we often miss it. We miss it. We're completely distracted. We're multitasking. We're in our Zoom meetings. We're doing our email over here, our phone is dinging, and we have our lunch and we're taking bites in between, right? Or sometimes we're walking and talking and eating has become less of a, often a family event, or that we're sitting down. And therefore, a lot of us have suffered. So as Timuri was saying about where, eating the fruit and where it begins, digestion begins in the mouth. So much research has gone with digestion improving, lowering blood sugars, weight management, a lot about stress eating and binge eating. So particularly if you think of the times we're in right now, most of us have had some, amount of stress because of these unique circumstances we're in. And so conscious eating, to me, it's a little bit like meditation meets nourishment. And a lot of people will say, I want to meditate, but I don't have time to meditate. But this practice of eating consciously, we eat. We need to eat to survive. So one of the most beautiful things about it is that we have an opportunity to practice every single time we eat. And I promise you, and it happens to me, and I talk about it and I teach it and facilitate classes, we forget. So you may start eating, and then what happens to us? We go on autopilot, and it's just, you know, we're somewhere else. Either we're somewhere else really, like the multitasking, or we're somewhere else in our thoughts. And maybe, you know, we're thinking about, you know, what we're going to say at that meeting tomorrow, or some issue and problem we're having. And so a lot of the conscious eating process is about being completely present, having gratitude when we eat, thinking about the entire process. For those of you who've gone through like the experiment, and we do this, a lot of people have done it with fruit. You know, sometimes we do it with a raisin or a chocolate chip or a blueberry or any of those beautiful things in the bowl over there. And every time we eat or take a bite, we tune into it, which seems so simple, but what we'll notice is that, you know, the mind keeps getting distracted, and we just bring it back to the process. And there's many different ways to do that. So
yeah, thanks. Good to hear that. And no wonder this is so critical that the California governor's office actually contacted you to
it was the
session.
it was the California State Treasurer. I should correct it.
Okay. That so there is a lot of concern, you know, about this in the state government as well. So great. Questions are pouring in. So let me take one which is talks about what grain can a pre-diabetic take safely without increasing sugar level, and of course while taking consideration of the portion, etc. And I think the grain that this person is referring to is millets, wheat, whole brown rice, etc.
Who do you want to answer? Erica's diabetes educator. I can answer the question as well. My take on it would be any of those whole grains, your body's going to have a different response. Each person's going to be a little individualized with that. So the more intact, the better. So if we're talking about oats, the oat groats are going to be a better choice than something like, you know, in the opposite direction, instant oatmeal, right? So as far as that, and again, it's the structure, the fiber, how long it takes for that to get broken down in your body. But whenever I hear grains are healthful, I always want people to think about legumes at the same time. So the more of the beans and lentils and peas, like the dried split peas, the better in that meal. So making sure, and that's the prebiotics, the fiber that's fueling the healthful bacteria that are producing the short chain fatty acids, the butyrates that are feeding the gut lining. So grains are okay, but always a grain with a bean and a green. That would actually be a beautiful trio together. But quinoa and the brown rice, what's even better phytonutrient-wise than brown rice is black rice and purple rice and red rice. Those are shown to be even more antioxidant rich and powerful. I had mentioned quinoa, the whole oat groats, all of those are fine.
So here is a quick one. This could be for Dr. Sanjeev. Does Indian pickles have the same effect as pickled vegetables?
Yes, basically any pickling process which is done under low oxygen condition is going to give more of these anaerobic bacteria, which are very important. And so we have some patients in our clinic who would basically pickle every single thing they eat. You know, they just pickle with those special, you know, jars which seal that food, and they pickle everything before they eat it. And so that's one approach that some individuals, especially people with bad allergies, have used with some benefit. And so, yeah, so all pickling process is effective.
The other question is, what about making smoothies in the morning using leafy vegetables and vegetables like carrots?
So same situation, if you can chew, you're better off. if you do a smoothie, doing more vegetables than fruit makes the most sense. But again, I think starting your day with a big bowl of vegetables that you actually chew. I often will, when I come back from a run, have salad, but my salad is not a wimpy salad. But you can do, I love kale and cabbage, red cabbage, steamed. That's a beautiful basis to a breakfast. There's no reason why we have to have sweet breakfast foods. The smoothies have gotten very popular, but again, some people put so much into a smoothie that they're just deluging their body with too much at once, and they're not giving their body the chance to do the chewing, which is critical.
So anything that you want to add, Dr. Sandhya? Erika, you want to add something to that?
I wasn't sure if the question was mixing fruits and vegetables or if it was just vegetables. But
It's just putting everything in a smoothie. That was the question.
it sounded like it was like carrot. It sounded like it was a carrot vegetable without fruit kind of thing, which
Yeah.
I think yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I think I agree with the chewing when we can, and yet I think these things can be really tailored. I'm a fan of, like carrot vegetable juice. So I don't knock it when it works for people. I think, there are many ways to a healthy diet. So,
Yes.
I agree with the chewing and the fruit. But I can't say that if it's just like a vegetable, carrot, kale, spinach, cucumber, parsley juice. I don't know. It's nice.
That's very healthy. So
Dr.
this
Jane,
is
I
a
don't know
this
if
is
you want
yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Dr. Jain?
Well, no, I completely agree that chewing is a very important part of the digestive process. But in life, we always have to deal with balancing efficiency with, nutritional value. And so for some individuals, if the choice is drinking orange juice versus drinking smoothie, I think, the choice is very clear. Smoothie is definitely healthier than orange juice is.
So there are some very short questions. We are now, a little bit past time, but very short questions. So for people who are not from the region where quinoa is grown, particularly India, who are not exposed, is it okay for them to have quinoa? That's the question.
Yes. So in my mind, the genetic background of individuals does not have a huge impact on the nutritional requirements in most cases. And so whether quinoa is native to one's culture isn't as important as just the fact that quinoa is a healthy grain. And regarding different grains, there are certain grains which are also high in protein. Also, buckwheat is another one that I would recommend as a grain which is high in protein, high in fiber. It's a very healthy grain as well. But yeah, all these so-called paleo grains, they're all very healthy. The key is having high fiber, complex carbohydrate, and multiple nutrients. And from those perspective, I'm not as much in favor of rice as a grain versus some of these, paleo grains, which are more nutrient rich, and they're also more rich in complex carbohydrates, which are very beneficial.
Amaranth and teff are also two excellent choices.
Mm-hmm.
So other grains, we have a lot more access to grains now, from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So Timothy, I have a short, not question, but a short request for you from one of the participants. But before I do that, any message from Erika we are about to close the program. So any message to the participants from your side?
A message to the participants.
Yeah, something that they should be conscious about.
I think that what I hope for all of us is that every eating experience that we have is an opportunity to just come back to the present moment and realize that we eat to nourish ourselves, and just really tune in to how does this feel inside. A lot of times when we eat these foods and practice with this intention, we notice a huge difference between when we're snacking on chips and candy bars than when we're snacking on fruits and vegetables and whole grains. So I would just encourage all of us at every opportunity we have, and no judgment, whatever we're eating, choose to eat it this way and notice how does that feel, and that will guide your decisions. So no guilt on what you do choose, but when you choose it, tune in and see how it feels. That's my message.
Okay, and the request to Timmerie before we end this program. Somebody missed your, your demo in the beginning and wanted to know the recipe. So my answer to that person is that we are going to put this video on the website. We'll edit a part of it and put it. So you are welcome to see it not just once, but as many times as you want to. So that's definitely happening. Check out Crack the Wellness Code, which is our website. So Crack the Wellness Code and /webinars. So you'll find this video, entire video there very soon. So you can see it at leisure. But if you have to sum up what you made today, Timmerie, what would you call it? I mean, how do you sum up this whole thing,
I know it's a complicated, I was trying to think of some flashy name for this, but it's an immune boosting fruit treat, because it's more than just a fruit salad. There's every piece is going to help your body. But as Erica said, you can have the healthiest food on the planet, but if you're not clued in and you're not actually participating in the eating process, then much of that can actually just go right through you. And you won't, because it's not just what we eat, it's what we absorb. And when you're in the fight or flight mode, which happens when you're not relaxed, then you're not allowed to do the rest and digest mode. That's the two opposites. So take several deep breaths, look at this beautiful food that you're going to eat, and don't let one bite go by without enjoying it.
Thank you, Erica. And there's one tip that we got from one of our participants, is that if you move the mixed chaat masala into it, this could be a wonderful Indian snack, according to.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, so there's already a value addition to what you've done so far. So anyway, thanks so much to all of you. It was wonderful. We had all the participants glued all through the program. And of course, there are a few more questions we couldn't take, but by and large, we answered them. So we'll keep doing these sessions. We know that, this is something that, the community wants at large. And thanks to all of you once again, and have a wonderful evening. And we'll again touch base in June and July. Keep looking at our calendar, and have you once again. Bye-bye.